Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? It's Wednesday, which means it's time for me to go through my start sits at the quarterback and tight end positions. In this specific video, it's going to be all about the quarterbacks. So I'm going to go through all 16 matchups, talk about every single quarterback, whether or not I feel comfortable putting them in my lineup. While you guys are watching this, if you enjoy the content, all I ask is that you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and then let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. You guys could ask me start-sit questions, trade advice, waiver wire pickups, any of that stuff. Just let me know down below. And then I do have timestamps on this video, so if you guys just want to jump around to your specific players, that's totally fine. If you want to watch the whole thing, I think that's solid because these are going to be the players you're going against, maybe potentially trading for. So the information is going to be very relevant, but let's get into the first matchup. Thursday Night Football. We've got the Giants matching up with the Washington Football Team, and I'm going to be sitting both of these quarterbacks. Daniel Jones could be a decent play on solid matchups, but this is a very solid Washington Football Team defense, and so I just do not really trust him. This offense did not look very good last Sunday, so he's going to be on the bench. And then I'm also going to be sitting Taylor Heinicke. I just don't think he has that same upside as Ryan Fitzpatrick. And we really saw the Washington Football Team just rely on Antonio Gibson throughout the entire game. So we're going to be 2 sits in that game. Now we're on to Sunday, where we have the Patriots traveling to New York to play the Jets. And I'm going to be sitting both of these quarterbacks as well. Mac Jones is a guy who could go out there. He could pass for like 3 touchdowns. But if he doesn't get to that 3 touchdown mark, he's just not going to be a high upside play. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Damian Harris, and so I just don't see that upside here with Mac. Same thing with Zach Wilson. This is a very tough Patriots defense. The Jets offense did not look good. I think Zach Wilson is going to be a very good NFL quarterback. I just don't know if he's going to have very solid fantasy production this season, especially because that offensive line was just getting carved all game. And then you have Mekhi Becton out for at least a few weeks, so just not a good matchup there. On to the Broncos traveling to Jacksonville. And actually, both of these quarterbacks are going to be starts. They're definitely not like high-end top 12 starts, but still, Teddy Bridgewater going up against this absolutely terrible Jacksonville Jaguars defense. We saw Tyrod Taylor go out there and put up some top-tier fantasy numbers, so I expect Teddy Bridgewater to do the same. And then for Trevor Lawrence, since this defense is going to give up so many points, he is going to be throwing the ball the entire game. I could definitely see a path where he finishes close to 50 pass attempts. He went over 50 week 1. This is a tougher Denver Broncos defense, but I still think he's like a mid-tier QB2 this week. Then we have a divisional matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins. I know Josh Allen struggled week 1, but he has got to be in your lineup. I still think he's going to finish as like a top 4, top 5 quarterback, so he's in there. And then I am going to be sitting Tua. I just did not see enough from him in that game against the Patriots for me to want to plug him into my lineup. He is going to get Will Fuller back, but I still just think he's going to be like a low-end QB2 probably throughout the entire season. The 49ers are going to face off against the Eagles, and I'm going to be sitting Jimmy Garoppolo. He did play very well in his week 1 matchup against the Lions. The issue here is that this Eagles team is not as good of a matchup for him. And then if they're going to bring in Trey Lance on the goal line, that just kills a lot of Jimmy G's upside. Jimmy G drives them down the entire field. Then Trey Lance gets in there on the 5-yard line and throws a touchdown pass. That is a touchdown that Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to have. So not as good of a matchup. And he's going to lose those red zone touches. Not really interested in him. I will be starting Jalen Hurts. I was so impressed with his performance against the Falcons. I do think we kind of have to wait and see if he can replicate it against a top defense, but still, he was rushing the ball effectively. That just gives him such a solid floor. So I'd be very happy if I was a Jalen Hurts owner, and he's definitely going to be in my lineup. The next game here is going to be the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Indianapolis to play the Colts, and Matthew Stafford has got to be a locked-in start. The man absolutely balled out against the Bears. It was really great to see. Matthew Stafford spent so many years on a bunch of terrible Lions teams. He now has a great core around him, great wide receivers. You've got a solid O-line, a decent running back, a great defense behind him. So he is going to be a start in this game. And then I'm going to be sitting Carson Wentz. I think he played well week 1. He just didn't really have that huge upside that we would like to see. And this is going to be going against a tough Rams defense. they really limited Andy Dalton. Obviously, that's not the toughest task in the world, but still, this is probably even a tougher matchup than the Seahawks was last week for Wentz. Then we're on to this Raiders-Steelers game, and I think Derek Carr and Ben Roethlisberger are both kind of on the fringe here. If you're in a super flex league, they're probably going to be in your lineup. Derek Carr honestly played very well against the Ravens on Monday night. I'm just concerned with his lack of weapons, and this is a very solid Steelers defense. We saw what they did to Josh Allen, so Derek Carr is going to be sitting. And then same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. I do think he's a guy that you can play in favorable matchups, but he really did struggle against the Bills. He looked so incredibly slow out there, and I know he's not a guy who's known for his speed, but he did not look anywhere near as good as he did in the preseason, so I'm going to have to wait and see him put up some good performances before I want to start him. Then we have the Bengals facing off against the Chicago Bears in Soldier Field. I'm going to be starting Joe Burrow. He looked great on Sunday, really just carried that team along with Joe Mixon, so he is going to be in my starting lineup. And then I'm going to be sitting Andy Dalton. He's probably going to be my 32nd ranked quarterback this week. He just has zero upside. The man only threw 2 passes over 10 air yards on Sunday night. One of them was intercepted. The other one was incomplete. They bring in Justin Fields on the goal line, so probably the worst possible quarterback play. Texans traveling to Cleveland up next. I'm going to be sitting Tyrod Taylor. He did have a very good week 1 against the Jaguars, but I think you can attribute a lot of that to the Jaguars defense just being horrendous. I don't think he's going to have the same success against the Browns. He really just doesn't have the supporting cast around him. And then I'm going to be starting Baker Mayfield. I think they're going to run through this Texans team. They probably are going to rely on the run a lot, but I also think he's going to have some red zone opportunities. Hopefully he gets Odell Beckham back. If Odell is not playing, I'd feel a lot more skeptical about starting Baker. So this is kind of assuming that OBJ is going to be playing. We've got a divisional matchup here between the Saints and the Panthers. And this was kind of a tough call for Jameis Winston. We know he balled out week 1, 5 touchdowns, but he did throw for under 150 yards. So I just don't really know what to make of that performance. I don't think he's going to be replicating that type of efficiency. So I do have him as a sit. He's definitely one of these borderline guys. If he goes out there week 2, throws for 250 yards, 2-3 touchdowns, then I think he's definitely a guy that we're going to have to be starting. But I just want to see some consistency out of him. And then Sam Darnold had a pretty solid week 1, but if we're being honest, that was a cake matchup against the Jets, and he just didn't really have the ceiling that I was kind of hoping for. He played it very safe, which obviously is fine for real life NFL, but for fantasy, he has a tougher matchup this week, and I'm just not seeing it from Sam Darnold. I really like this next matchup here between the Vikings and the Cardinals. I have both of these QBs listed as starts. Kirk Cousins played very well against the Bengals. They threw the ball a ton. You've got Jefferson and Thielen, and they're also running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets with KJ Osborne, so he's a guy to look out for. And then for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray has got to be a locked-in start in your lineup. The man absolutely tore up that Titans defense, and he was my QB2 going into the season, and I'm feeling really good about that pick. Then we've got a dangerous game here. Tom Brady hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan and that offense looked absolutely terrible on Sunday against the Eagles. This is a really solid Bucs defense. Even though that secondary is a little thin, I just do not feel comfortable starting Matt Ryan until we see them put together some solid performances. Tom Brady has got to be a locked-in start. He tore up this Falcons team 2 times last year. These weapons are stacked, and I think the Bucs are going to run through the Falcons. I think right now they're like a 13-point favorite, so it's going to be a big game for Brady. We've got another big-time matchup here between the Titans and the Seahawks, and I am going to be starting both of these quarterbacks. I'm kind of willing to give the Titans a little bit of a pass for their Week 1 performance, so Ryan Tannehill is going to be back into my lineup. But if they struggle again Week 2, then we really have to evaluate all of those weapons. Russell Wilson, locked-in starter, looked amazing on Sunday. They were letting him cook, and he was just balling out. I think this next game has major shootout potential. It's going to be the Cowboys traveling to Los Angeles to play the Chargers, and both of these QBs have to be locked-in starts. Dak looked great on Thursday night. There were no signs of him struggling from that ankle injury, and I do think Herbert played very well Sunday against a tough Washington football team defense. This is a much, much easier matchup here against that Cowboys team. So I think both of those guys have to be in your lineup. And then 2 more no-brainer starts here between the Chiefs and the Ravens. Patrick Mahomes got to be in your lineup. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. He started off very strong. He had those 2 fumbles late in the game, which really kind of hurt his overall points, but I still think he's got to be a locked-in start. That rushing upside is unmatched. I think he looked pretty good throughout the game on Monday, so he has got to be in your lineup. And then we are on to our Monday night football game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to be sitting Jared Goff. He really went out and shocked a lot of people, was a top scoring quarterback week 1. I just don't know if you can count on this. I do think this Lions offense is going to be better than a lot of people anticipated. I really liked the way he used Hawkinson, Jamal Williams, and DeAndre Swift all together, but I just don't feel confident putting him into my lineup when you just get like 0 production from the wide receivers. And then Aaron Rodgers, major week 1 bust, but you've got to put him back out there. This is a get-right game for him against this Detroit Lions team. They got carved by the 49ers. I expect the Packers to carve them as well. So A-Rod is going to be in my lineup. All right, so those were all 16 week 2 matchups for the quarterback position, going through all my start sits. If you guys enjoyed the video, please just leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And then you guys can ask me any questions down below. I'll be responding to every single comment. You guys can go check out my tight end start sit, which is going to be coming out later today. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be putting out my weekly rankings for every single position. So go check that out, guys. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.